What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in. In today's video, we're going to be going over one of the most controversial questions on the internet right now. Does cold email actually work in 2026? Now, I sent 10,000 cold emails to find out, so you don't have to. So, does cold email actually still work? There are two camps on this. The first camp says that cold email is dead, that inboxes are saturated, and that spam filters catch everything. But the second camp says that cold email is still one of the highest ROI client acquisition channels available. I'm personally in the second camp, and you'll find out why later in the video. So, the answer is that cold email does work, but not in the way that most people are doing it. The spray and pray version is dead, where you send generic templates to massive unfiltered lists with no offer and no relevance. The version that does work is specific, targeted, high volume, properly infrastructured, and combined with the kind of social presence that makes a prospect trust you before they reply. Now, this doc covers what the data actually says, what campaigns succeed or fail, and what you need to have in place in order to get consistent results. Month-to-month consistency, not like a one-time hit or miss. So, if you're new here, my name is Dominic Schwantes. I'm the founder of Workflows, a B2B AI lead generation agency. I document everything I do in real time, the campaigns, the systems, and the results. And what you'll find in this document is based on real campaigns that actually worked, not just some theory. So let's have a look at what the numbers actually look like. The industry average reply rate for cold email in 2026 sits at a roughly 1 to 3% reply rate, depending on the niche, the offer, and the quality of lists, of course. Now, the average positive reply rate, meaning people who actually are interested, is a fraction of that. Now, those numbers sound low, but they're not low when you actually understand the maths. So let's go over an example. If you're sending 1,000 cold emails per day across to a properly built infrastructure and only getting a 1% positive reply rate, that is 10 qualified conversations per day. Across a month, that is 2 to 300 qualified conversations, which is a lot. Now, if your offer converts at even 10% of those conversations, I can't draw today, 10% of those conversations to a signed client, that is 20 to 30 new clients per month from one singular channel. Not Facebook, I don't know why I said Facebook, not LinkedIn, not Twitter, not LinkedIn, just one channel. Now, the math does work, but the question is not whether cold email works. The question is whether you have the infrastructure, the offer, and the targeting to make the maths work in your favor. So let's have a look at why most cold email campaigns fail. Now, there are three main reasons, but most newbies blame it on the deliverability, which is usually never the problem. But reason number one is wrong targeting. So targeting the wrong people is the fastest way to kill a cold email campaign. Wrong targeting means one of two things. Either you're targeting people who don't have the problem that your offer solves, or you're targeting people who have the problem but can't make a buying decision without involving 6 other people. Think of like B2B SaaS companies who have procurement and go to a board and have a sales cycle of a minimum of 6 months, which we'll get to later in the video, by the way. But the best email targets are business owners or decision makers in service-based businesses where one person can say yes or no in a single conversation. Think of tradies, professional services, local businesses with clear revenue and a clear problem. They can make a decision on the phone and pay up front. Now, reason number two is a weak or unclear offer. The offer is the most important variable in any cold email campaign. Not the subject line, not the offer, not the copy, not the sending time, but the offer. Now, a weak offer is one that doesn't solve a specific felt problem, but a vague offer is one where the prospect cannot immediately understand what they are getting and what result they will get by buying your offer. Now, the offer needs to understand three main questions that you must answer in the first couple of sentences of the email. So, what problem does this solve? What result will I get? And what do I need to get started? I being the client, of course. Now, if any of those three questions are unclear, the reply rate will reflect that. And reason number three is the insufficient volume, which is actually usually the biggest reason why most people fail, is insufficient volume. And you'll understand why in a minute when we go through the maths. But cold email is a linear game. The relationship between volume and the results is direct and predictable. If you're sending 100 emails per day and not getting the results you want, the answer is almost never to send never to send better emails. It's not like, oh, let me change the subject line and improve that. That'll fix it. It's always to send more emails when making incremental improvements to the offer and the targeting. Now, most beginners underinvest in infrastructure, rightly so, because they usually don't have a lot of money starting out, but it's because usually they're afraid of burning inboxes and domains. Now, that fear is largely unfounded. If you're using Google Workspace or Microsoft Outlook inboxes, which you should be, sending 1,000 emails per day with spin syntax applied with proper DNS authentication in place, your delivery will be just fine. Now, the bottleneck is not the infrastructure, it's volume. Think about this. If you're sending 500 cold emails per day, let's do the math really quickly. If you're sending 500 cold emails per day every weekday, so excluding weekends, so that's 22 days in an entire 30-day month, that is 11,000 cold emails a month. That's a lot. If your average campaign lead list is about 2 to 4,000, you can at least send 2 to 3 versions of that different campaign to different industries. So 500 is the minimum you should be starting with. So let's look at what success actually requires. And there are 5 main components that need to be in place before you can expect the maths to work in your favor. The first is clear infrastructure or clean infrastructure. Domains bought from reputable registrars like ScaleMail, Domaincheap, and GoDaddy are the big 3, I think. Now, you need 2 inboxes per domain usually, a full DNS authentication including SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. Now, if you're using ScaleMail, and those guys are correct, so I'd recommend using them. I'm not affiliated with them, they're just good at what they do. They set all of that up for you. So all you do is you give them access to your GoDaddy or your Namecheap domain account, and they go into the backend and set everything up for you. They link it into your SmartLead account as well, so it's fantastic. So a warm-up period of at least 2 to 4 weeks is the minimum before sending to cold traffic, a minimum of 2 weeks. You do not know the amount of guys that come to me and said, Dom, my cold emails just tanked. I said, well, how many weeks in the warm-up pool did you put the emails in for? And they're like, oh, well, 1. It's like, yeah, dude, your emails are still like unfamiliar to all these big providers. It needs to be at least 2 weeks. And if you're using a service like SmartLead, they'll keep it in the warm-up pool whilst they're sending. So it's like permanently 4 weeks plus really in the warm-up pool, which is great. Now, this is not complicated, but it needs to be done correctly. And skipping the warm-up or overloading the inboxes is one of the few ways you can actually create deliverability problems. Reason number 2 is verified lead lists. Every email address on your list needs to go through a very solid verification process before it's loaded into a campaign. Now, bounce rates above 2% damage the sender reputation, but above 5%, you're getting into very dangerous territory, and most sending tools will throttle or suspend your account. Now, the workflow is usually Apollo to Clay, and we use Boomerang to scrub Apollo leads. If you haven't watched that video on the channel, go back and check that out. And then Zero Bounce for email validation. Now, you can use Mailtester Ninja as well in Clay, but I would advise against it just because you need like the second tier plan, which is a couple $100 a month, and that's not financially viable for most people. So it's better to be on the free plan of Clay and then use Zero Bounce. And you can get like unlimited emails for like $99 a month, which is a lot. And the good thing is those credits don't expire. So even if you cancel the plan, the credits just roll into the next month, which is great. Now, only valid status emails make it through the final export, which you can filter through in Clay as well. Now, catch-all addresses are removed. Now, for those of you who don't know what these guys are, catch-all addresses, very dangerous. You don't want to be sending to them. So just say you have bob@apple.com. Excuse the horrid handwriting. But that means that your email gets sent to this inbox here. Anything that goes to apple.com, whether you send it to Bob, Lucinda, it doesn't matter the person, it just goes to this. Now, this tanks your discovery or your deliverability because you're not getting any engagement with the email. So you can send 5, 2 emails, it doesn't matter. If they're not opening it and they're not responding to the email, it's going to absolutely tank the deliverability, which is why we remove all that in the filtering process inside of Apollo. Now, spin syntax on all of the copy. Now, at volume, spam filters detect repeated identical content across multiple sends. Now, spin syntax creates variations of the same email at variable points, so each send is technically unique. Now, without spin syntax, you'll start seeing deliverability degradation within days of scaling up the volume. So for those of you who don't know what spin syntax is, it looks like this. So if you're in a email thing inside of SmartLead, spin syntax will look like hey, line, hi, and hello. So those are 3 variations of the opening. Now, inside of SmartLead, excuse the drawing, but it'll be like curly brackets like this. Now, in Instantly and other platforms, just be careful, it will be slightly different. So be sure to check the documents of those providers before you go and do this. But that's an example. So SmartLead will automatically at random fire each of these 3 into the pool of leads, whether it's 4,000, 2,000, whichever. Now, you can customize what the split of all these 3, but I'd recommend just letting SmartLead handle all this because they know the best. So a 2 email sequence. You should only be sending a 2 email sequence at the max. Email 1 is for the cold outreach, but email 2 is the follow-up, sent several days later after the first email is sent, at least 3 days later. Now, a significant portion of my replies came from email 2, so they'll probably come in the second email for you as well. Now, sending more than 2 emails annoys people who are not interested and generates spam complaints and damages your sending reputation. So imagine you're on the receiving end and you send like 5 emails. If they haven't responded after 2 emails, you're probably not interested and you're probably either going to delete, block, or mark as spam. So imagine if you send 3, 4, 5 emails, it's just not going to work. So do 2 at the max. There are so many fish in the pools that there should be in your niche pool that moving on after 2 should be more than enough. Now, for the success multipliers, this is the variable most cold email operators ignore entirely. When a prospect receives your email and even remotely considers your offer, the first thing they do is search your name. What they find in that moment determines whether they reply. I literally did this today. I got a cold email from someone. I literally went to the to the signature block of the email, copied it, pasted it into Google, and I saw like no social presence. So I'm like, delete. That's what they will do to you. These people are busy and they don't have time. So if they don't see a well-structured social presence of YouTube, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, they're probably just going to move on. So a LinkedIn profile with relevant content, a YouTube channel showing how you work, a landing page with a VSL and client testimonials, each of those adds a trust point to the trust meter. So think of it as a trust bucket, right? You've got everything, every bit of social media you have and every bit of social proof is a point. So landing page with VSL, 1 point. YouTube, 1 point. LinkedIn, 1 point. TikTok, 1 point. So that's person A. Compare it to person B who has nothing. They've literally got like maybe a website, which is like half a point if they don't even have any VSL or any sort of client testimonials. Think about which person they're going to go with. Obviously, person A has the most social proof and the most amount of trust built. So getting a prospect to reply actually requires a 6 or 7 out of 10 on the trust scale. Getting them to close requires an 8 or a 9. But cold email gets you to a 4 or 5 just on the basis, but everything else you build around it gets you to that threshold. So the niches where cold email works best right now are the niches that are producing the strongest reply rates based on these 3 characteristics. The decision maker is easy to identify and contact directly, like we spoke about before. The business has a clear felt problem, and the sales cycle is short enough that a single conversation can lead to a signed contract. So trades businesses, construction companies, landscaping businesses, professional services like accounting and law firms, financial planning, marketing agencies, and any business actively hiring for roles related to the service you provide. Now, the companies to avoid are B2B SaaS, enterprise businesses, and the government, obviously. Now, like we said with B2B SaaS before, the procurement and the legal review stuff is massive. Minimum like 6 months of procurement before they even get to you. So what happened to a couple of friends of mine is they started sending emails to B2B SaaS companies and they said, oh, we'll get back to you. So they kept following up for like 3 months and they got nowhere. Now, government and enterprise is like B2B SaaS on steroids. The amount of layers of government to get through is just not worth it. So target more accessible companies like this than these 3 guys. And they'll try and trick you as well. Particularly with staffing and recruitment firms, avoid the ones that have executive search because they'll go, oh, we'll give you an executive search, pay on commission kind of things, which they'll say, well, you can earn like 100 grand, which is cool, but you have no guarantee of that for one. The roles are very hard to staff and fill, secondly. And thirdly, you just don't want to deal with the hassle. It's much easier to get guaranteed income here, maybe for a bit less, than try and go for the big winner here and have no certainty that you'll actually close the deal. So any organization where procurement or legal review is actually required before vendor engagement are the worst performing categories and should be avoided. They're just not worth the headache. Now, the honest answer, cold email works in 2026. It's predictable and it scales linearly, linearly and compounds over time as your success multiplies, build up alongside it. Now, what does not work is doing it the way everyone else does it. So generic templates that usually come from 2015, by the way, they're outdated. Unverified lists with no social presence, no spin tax, and no clear offer. That is a recipe for disaster and for failure. Now, the operators that are getting results are the ones who treat it as a system. Now, think of it as a whole piece of the pie. For example, if you break it up into each individual component, excuse the horrible drawing, you can tell I didn't do art at school. So you have infrastructure here, targeting here, offer, copy, sequence, and success multipliers. Now, if even one of those little pieces of the pie are screwed up, it infects everything else and it starts to leak out. And then that's just a train for disaster. So every single one of these items needs to be optimal in order for you to be successful. So my advice to you, build the system, run the volume, measure the data, and adjust the variables. That's literally the whole game. If you're under 30K a month in an agency, you don't have an offer problem, you don't have a targeting problem, you have a volume problem. You need to be sending minimum 500 to 1,000 cold emails per day. Remember what we did above? If you're sending 500 cold emails every business day for 30 days, or for 22 days really, excluding weekends, that's 11,000 cold emails per month. I don't know why I drew a dollar sign. 11,000 cold emails a month. Minimum is what you guys should be doing. No less than that. So that's the entire game. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of your videos. And I look forward to seeing you in tomorrow's video. Hey, solid. 14 minutes. Let's fucking go, bro.